Thanks everybody for joining us tonight. I'm here today with Karim Gibson, father, husband, son, and professionally, a middle school administrator. Karim is someone I grew up with in high school. He has an incredible story. I respect him and admire him, and I want to share his story with all of you today. Karim, welcome to Grit Machine DNA podcast.
Hey, Dave. Thanks for having me.
It's an honor to have you, man.
Yes, sir. Same here.
Well, we're going to dive right in. So here at Grit Machine DNA, Karim, we inspire people. We want people to hear wonderful stories of people doing incredible things like you. So we're going to dive right in. Who is Karim Gibson?
So who am I? Well, Karim is a first generation Caribbean American. My parents came here in the mid 70s. First, they landed in Philadelphia, and then they decided that Lynn was going to be the place where my parents were going to raise their children, being myself and my brother. My mother came to this country from Trinidad and Tobago, and my father came about a year later, 11 months to a year later. They married in 1974, had me in 1976. I was raised in the melting pot of Lynn, Massachusetts, a wonderful experience for me. I was raised on valuable principles, discipline, guidance, lots of love. And, along the ways at a very young age, I was introduced to the faith of Islam through my father. And it became part of the household. And, I like to say that my life has wonderful phases. Wasn't always roses. There was some certain points where there were some challenges in my life, especially as a teenager, but it molded me to be the person I am today.
So Karim, you and I grew up together.
Yes,
We
sir.
went to we should say we went to high school together.
Mhm.
I want you to paint a picture of what life was like when you were growing up around your high school years. What was life like?
Sure.
And what was Lynn?
So yeah, sure, Dave. I was very timid in high school. I was small. I actually nobody knows this. I share this with my students, but I came off the tail end of being bullied when I was a youngster.
Hmm.
And, verbally, physically, by, the neighborhood kids. I was smaller, I was shy, I was insecure. Um, I had my neighborhood friends, but then when I explored beyond the neighborhood, in school, ridiculed for being culturally different, ridiculed for the way I spoke, ridiculed for the way I dressed.
Hmm.
And then I found around middle school, I found sports being a wonderful outlet. Um, I wasn't really a confident athlete. I had the athletic ability, but I wasn't confident. I think that stems from years of dealing with bullying and dealing with mean behavior. So then I turned to sports and I went full force with it. I would say right around the end of my junior high years, I said I wanted to play high school sports, and it was important to me to play at the varsity level. I was impressed and I was encouraged by leaders before me, like yourself, and players who went off to college out of high school. I wanted to be that person. I wanted to make my family proud.
Hmm.
I developed that confidence that I didn't have. I excelled in multiple sports. My number one sport was basketball, but then I felt that I was I had a gift of speed, able to run, getting from one point to the next at a rapid pace. And I said, you know what? I was encouraged by coaches to say, you know what, you should try track and field, and you should also bring your talents to the field. And by doing so, it opened up many doors. It kept me out of trouble. It surrounded me with family in terms of my teammates. I always considered my teammates to be family. Even to this day, I have wonderful relationships from being a good teammate and from being part of a good system. I had great coaches. I had dedicated coaches that guided me along the way. And through high school, I didn't even know it, but I was building on my future. And that was to earn a full ride to a university, which I did. And I played football at the collegiate level. And if it wasn't for the experiences that I had in high school, I would not have had all those opportunities. So sports was a big factor in my life, as well as education.
Grim, one of the things I remember about you was your father. Your father was around a lot. Um,
Definitely.
Today we talk about statistics, and one of the statistics that I worry a lot about is in the African American community, over 2/3 of families don't have fathers in the home. They're broken homes, and in the Hispanic community, almost 50%. I believe that fathers are really important. Mothers are really important. How important were your parents during that time of your life?
Well, Dave, you know what? Uh, that's a loaded and important question. I didn't realize how impactful my father was until I became a man myself. Um, my father was strict. He was he ruled with an iron fist, and to a point where I felt I was afraid of my father. I actually was afraid of my father. I was afraid to do anything wrong. I was afraid to make mistakes. I think that's why I think I became an easy target for bullies. I kind of was like coward because my father was so strict. And he did that because he grew up without a father. And it was his way of, he was part of gangs growing up in his country. And, he really loved his children, myself and my brother. And very, very important. The guidance, the discipline, the lessons that I've gotten from my dad. I'm thinking about growing up when I looked around, if I like, let's say I had about a dozen friends. I was just me and my brother. I was one of the kids who had, you know, a household with both parents. He wasn't an easy guy, but to this day, my father is in his early 70s and he's an incredible man. Now that I'm older, I see that. Now that I'm a father myself, I really, really appreciate growing up with a father because I feel like if he wasn't a part of my life, I wouldn't be the person I am today. I wouldn't be speaking with you.
What does it mean to surround yourself with good people as a matter of helping your own personal development toward a better future?
So I feel that trust is a major factor. You have to know, you know, initially I wasn't always a person of good of good judgment. That was a flaw of mine. Um, I think God played a major part in surrounding me with good people, nurturing people. Um, and I think that led the way for me. And I think if you do that, you're fortunate enough to get yourself around good people, good areas, making good choices. I think that anybody can have a successful life, a great experience growing, molding themselves, and learning values of their own. I think I was blessed with that, especially in the high school days. I started to realize that this is a good person. This is a good decision I'm making. In high school, you make some choices that are not always ideal, but you learn from those. And I think I had the support of others that would help me learn from the mistakes, or even try to like check me and say, you know what, Karim, take a different approach. So I've always had that. I was fortunate to have that growing up.
You were probably one of the fastest guys I ever played with. Um, Talk to us about football, your career in high school, what you went on to do after in your career in college. And I want to ask from the perspective of listeners who are like wondering, who is this guy Karim? What do you mean he was fast? What did he do? What was the football career like, and why was it important?
Definitely, Dave. Great question. So going back to when we started, I was very timid. Okay. I've always had the athletic ability to run, to jump, quickness, agility. The confidence level was always an issue with me. Being shy, being timid. So that was a factor that hindered the earlier days of football. But once I had, developed the confidence from coaches, from teammates, even from family that you can do this. You have a gift, okay? You have a gift of speed, you have a gift of athleticism. You have to now get rid of that midget mindset, that mental mindset that you can't do this, that you're not going to be successful. Once I started to believe in myself, and get encouragement goes a long way. Um, I was able to perform, Dave. I was able to perform. I had leadership. That's what got me through the earlier days. I had a team that I was a part of, the football team at Lynn Classical, where, believe it or not, jokes aside, we had a great time, joking and playing and such, but the team had leaders. I started to look at you guys from the rear. I was a person in the back looking at the success that you guys laid down. Toughness, attitude, positive attitude, the way you carried yourself in the hallways, the way you carried yourself as captains. That was very inspirational, Dave. And that actually paved the way. Once you guys left, I kind of, I became a captain of the football team, and I knew that I owed it to you guys. Okay. You guys were clean about it. You guys were determined. And I actually felt that myself and two other guys who were actually tri captains, I felt that I had a responsibility to you, to the young guys growing up. So I took it seriously. Just as I take my, current position as a school leader, I owe it to the people who hired me. I owe it to the people whose children come into school every day. But football was very impactful. Had a great coach, had several great coaches on that team back in the early '90s, and that experience, I can't forget it, and it's made me the person I am today.
Mindset. One of the things that I love about your comments is you had a clear, winning, positive mindset. Any individual with a clear, positive mindset can do good things. That's a
Yes,
big statement. The other piece here is personal responsibility,
yes,
a topic that doesn't get talked about often. You had assumed personal responsibility over your outcomes, your actions, and your decisions to do good, better things. And I love that because um, that's a clear, tangible takeaway for listeners or viewers to say, yeah, I need to learn personal responsibility, or that's an important trait. And then the third one that I really want to underscore as well is the fact that there were people around you, whether they were players that were older than you, whether it was coaches that were around you, you were watching and you were learning leadership traits, leadership characteristics that you wanted to assume yourself and actually went on to assume as a leader of the team. Those three concepts are powerful, Karim. Now, a little bit about what you ended up doing. So here's Karim Gibson, incredible career in high school. Then he goes on to college to have another good career in football. So what happens after your college experience?
so at some point, I I guess I lost the drive momentarily. I lost the drive to move forward for multiple circumstances. I would say poor decision making, feeling alone, Dave, feeling that I felt alone at one point in my life. I went back to my earlier days of being doubtful. Um, I felt like I was surrounding myself with people who didn't have the same goals as I did, people who were condescending. Relationships were were a relationship that I was once in was a a it created an opportunity for me to um, go through some deep waters, but then rise to the occasion again. Um, Football wasn't always a favorite experience later on. I went through opportunities where I could have played pro. Um, I tried out the opportunity to become a pro athlete. It didn't work out. I had a stint at semi pro football, and I just lost the drive for a moment. And then I started to fulfill my obligations. I started to get back on that horse and that journey again. I would say once I enrolled into graduate school, Dave, um, it was many years aside from receiving my bachelor's degree, and I said, what do I really want to do? And I wanted to work with young people, Dave. Um, and through that, I became a teacher. I became a coach. I said I'd never wanted to coach because I had a bad experience in college where I felt that I didn't have a positive relationship with my positions coach. And I said I would never coach Dave because I didn't want to, I didn't want anybody to experience what I experienced as a student athlete. But then I said to myself, you know what? I don't have to be that same coach. I've coached to this day over about 500 kids in different sports, including football, basketball, girls volleyball, um, track and field, and even soccer. And to this day, when the young people see me, it's Coach Gibson with respect. And at that point, I said, you know what? I'm getting back on track. I can't. We all hit a bump in our lives, and what matters is how you when you fall down, can you rise to the occasion, Dave?
What's the role of parents in their children's education, Karim?
Are you saying what do I expect from parents, or what am I doing as a parent?
What,
What
oh man, we're going to dive into both. As a parent, what is your role in your child's education?
you know what, Dave? To get them up in the morning, to wish them well, to understand that they're not going to get everything that they need to fulfill as far as learning goes in the classroom. Um, we have to teach them the values. We have to teach them that school is responsible. I feel like if kids don't take school seriously, I think if my children don't take school seriously, Dave, that's on me, because this is an element of life that was for many of us of African descent. We weren't supposed to have this opportunity as far as being in the Western culture, as far as as far as the Western culture goes, through segregation and such. So I take it a little bit deeper, especially from a civil rights standpoint. For me now, in a Black household, education is after God, education is priority number one. So I just feel that parents should really instill the values of respecting your teacher, respecting your classmate, respecting the whole entire learning environment. Because if you falter and you're there for the wrong reasons, then you can affect all those around you. So I teach my children to go to school, pay attention, um, focus on what you're learning, challenge yourself. You really got to, I think parents need to do a better job challenging their students, their children, definitely. And I think these elements are, it could be appreciated more. It could be laid out as part of the foundation more. And I do think that, exposing your children to other activities, sports, um, music, singing, other extracurricular should be a part of a children's life. I know schools do a good job providing these outlets, but I think parents need to introduce their children to these outlets as well.
I had a really difficult situation about a year ago here in Linfield, where I live, about a teacher essentially telling one of my children that the Spanish language was sexist. Okay. And my child came
Hmm.
home and I was like, time out. What do you mean? Over two-thirds of the words in Spanish and in a feminine word, a. So let's have a conversation. What do you mean?
Yeah.
And so the question is this, and again, being very careful, I don't want to put you in tough situations, but um, what has in terms of education, Karim, what has changed from when you and I were growing up and the emphasis was so deep and focused on math, science, English? What changed?
I think today's focus, and I love the question, Dave, first of all. I think the focus now is on cognitive development, mental health, um, SEL, where social exposure is big now, where peer building is an issue now. Of course, we have topics around gender in school that we didn't have growing up, and it's like I am not accustomed to it, although I've been seeing, because I'm kind of like in the transition phase. I'm not too far from what I was taught. It was just like you said, it was just the basic subjects. Now you have to like, there's identity, which I had to get used to as an administrator. There's mental health, like I mentioned. There's you know, thoughts of suicide that I didn't see. There's thoughts of, I should say, self-harm that I didn't see growing up. Um, and just how to cope with that. It's very hard to cope with that. I think schools now are more equipped with guidance counselors and social workers and psychologists, because I think something's been peeled back where these kids are exposed to something, Dave. I don't know if it's social media, I don't know if it's music, entertainment, and they're bringing the child is different as a whole, Dave. And I think our kids are being more, and I got to be careful with when I say this. I think our kids are not being challenged, and I think there's more coddling going on. And I don't think that the kids of today some of them are not rising to their own. They're relying too much on mom and dad, I feel. And I see that quite a bit. I can share an experience with you where, you know, this happens all the time. When I was a kid and when you were a kid, if your teacher calls your parents and says, "Hey, Dave is acting the fool today. Karim is acting wild today." There's no question from our parents. It's, "Dave, you're gonna get it when you get home," or, "Karim, you're gonna be grounded for a year," whatever the case may be. These kids go home and say, "Well, mom and dad, I didn't do it," and that's the way it is. There's a debate between the teacher and parent, and it's a breakdown that I can't understand. Again, I don't have the answers, and I'm trying to seek the answers as to where this is coming from
Yeah,
and why this is happening, but it's been detrimental to the growth and the independence
yeah.
and responsibility of our youth today.
Karim, I'm going to start wrapping with a couple of questions that I always ask my guests. The
Sure.
first one is, what would Karim Gibson today say to 12-year-old Karim Gibson?
Enjoy the ride. Listen to your elders. At that time, I think I disregarded a lot of advice. I would say I was in middle school at that time. I would say take education more seriously, challenge yourself more, be brave, stand up for yourself. Um, don't let somebody ruin your day, and it's gonna be a wonderful ride.
All right, two more questions. What is your definition of leadership?
So, Dave, that's a good question, man. It's a really, I would say, again, we're going back to can you hear me? Oh, we're going back to responsibility, accountability, challenging yourself, challenging others, being there for your followers, setting good examples, and continuing to get better. One of the experiences that I'm having as a leader today is that I feel I'm somebody that people can count on. And I don't just settle with that. I settle with, okay, you can count on me today. You can count on me tomorrow. You can count on me next week. I think just continuing to better yourself. Don't give in to, you know, don't sell yourself short. Don't give in to that. And just, value yourself and just know your worth. Know your worth. Know your worth for sure.
All right, last question. You can take a minute to think about this one. What is your purpose?
you know what? At this point in life, I'm getting closer to realizing that, protect your family. Your parents are aging, you know, love them the way that they loved you, care for them in their later years, and just, continuing to grow, and just being better for the people around me.
I'm honored to be in your presence, man. Thank you. And thanks for everything you're doing for the community as an administrator in education. Really, the work you're doing is powerful and important to our society. So thank you. I want to thank you guys for joining us in another series of Grit Machine DNA. For more series, check out davidamorales.com and stay tuned for the next Grit Machine DNA podcast. Karim, we're signing off. Appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. You take care.
Bye-bye.
Si vives día a día en un abismo de dolor y buscas solución a tus problemas, busca del Señor y sigue su camino y pronto nacerá la paz en tu corazón. Y con la paz del Señor yo he vencido mi temor y yo vivo victorioso por su amor. Y con la paz del Señor yo he vencido mi temor y yo vivo victorioso por su amor. Si vives día a día en un abismo de dolor y buscas solución a tus problemas, busca del Señor y sigue su